Right. Welcome to this edition of the SAAMTalk, presented by the Coordinated Community Response of Madison County in partnership with Crisis Services of North Alabama. I am Adde Waggoner. I'm the sexual assault prevention educator here at Crisis Services. And I am joined today by Sgt Wright of the Huntsville Police Department Special Victims Unit. Sgt Wright, thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here. Myself, I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I hold a degree in criminal justice from Florida A&M University, and I've been with the Huntsville Police Department since 2011. My role here at the department is supervisor for the Special Victims Unit. The Special Victims Unit investigates all crimes involving sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse.
Thank you so much. And I'm grateful that you covered all that you do and what you do in the position with the Special Victims Unit, because I think it's important for us to highlight the collaborative nature of law enforcement along with agencies such as Crisis Services and SHARP that's on the arsenal. And we're organizations that provide what we call victim services to survivors who need forensic exams, documentation, as well as counseling, which puts us working very closely with members of law enforcement, including you. And these relationships that we have with law enforcement are incredibly important to the clients that we serve. So that being said, a topic that comes up often when we're talking about sexual violence prevention is self-defense. And everyone seems to have their own opinion on such a touchy topic, but we want to look at what the research says about self-defense as an effective tool in stopping sexual assault. And me personally, when I started researching this topic, I was pretty surprised to learn that certain forms of self-defense can be effective, particularly if it is a form called empowerment self-defense, which is not necessarily just teaching a person to poke eyeballs or use mace or a stun gun or something like that, but it also addresses the more subtle behaviors that contribute to sexual assault, such as consent talk, assertive communication, and de-escalation techniques. So Sergeant Wright, I'd like to ask, what types of self-defense classes are offered locally that you know of, and what do those programs entail?
Sure. So there's always all types of self-defense classes. Anyone that feels as though that this would be a good tool to put in their tool belt can seek them out. Depending upon where you are, I know that there's different gyms, be it MMA gyms, health gyms, things of that nature. People advertise on social media outlets all the time. Hey, we're doing a self-defense class on this particular day. If you're on a college campus, there are different programs such as RAD, Rape, Aggression, and Offense Defense, that are offered sometimes by the different university police departments and things of that nature. So there's all types of outlets and all types of venues in which you can acquire some of those tools to put in your tool belt for future use.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Do you know if they are open to all genders?
Sure. So most self-defense classes are open to all genders. There oftentimes are some specific classes that are open for different reasons, different empowerments, also the comfort level of the attendees. I know sometimes you may see something advertised, let's say on social media, hey, we're having a free 4-hour self-defense class for females, or we're having a self-defense class for this group or that group. That doesn't mean it's all encompassing, that all self-defense is for this particular group of people, but depending upon what the target audience is for that particular date, that particular session, sometimes they are targeted. However, most all self-defense is available to anyone because again, these tools are helpful to everyone.
Okay, great. So there's a little variety across the area for people who may be seeking that out. Okay. Do you know if some of these programs incorporate that empowerment self-defense basis of teaching more than just the physical skills, like assertive communication and the like?
Sure. One thing uh, that the data shows us is that oftentimes the sexual assaults are not about the sex act itself. It's more about power and control. So what we want to do is take that power back from the aggressor and giving it back to the victims or the survivors, so to speak. We don't want people to feel as though that, you are helpless. We don't want people to feel as though that this is something that's just going to happen to you and, oh my God, it's just my turn. But what we teach people in these types of classes is that you have the power to not only fight back, you have the power to win, and you have the power to survive.
Excellent. Thank you. And given that we are talking about specifically sexual violence, given, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April, the CDC views sexual violence as a public health issue. So we address it as such, as it's a public health concern that affects such a large swath of the population. And it's estimated that 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men have been the victim of completed or attempted rape in their lifetime. And while this rate has decreased since 1993, the problem is still prolific. And often we may not understand the realities of sexual violence. So I'd like to ask you, in your experience, who perpetrates sexual violence and where does it occur?
Sure. And so one of the major problems with sexual violence is that it is one of the most underreported crimes. Oftentimes, someone may think, well, I caused this on myself, or they may feel as though that if I just put it out my mind, it's something that I don't have to deal with again. Those numbers are, reported crimes and sometimes estimates, right? Because of course you don't know what you're not told. You don't know what you don't know. So they could be greatly underreported. But what we do know is that the purveyors of sexual violence oftentimes are people that people that you have either dating relationships with, or sometimes just a casual relationship or a familiarity with this person. We don't want to say that it doesn't exist, those shadowy figures that jump out of the bushes that you see on TV. We don't want to say that doesn't exist, but oftentimes what you see is, someone may go out on a date with someone else. Someone may be in a relationship with someone, and that instance occurs where a no is given and that no is not respected. So the very first thing that we want to teach people is that you have the ability, you have the choice, you have the authority to say no. You have control over what happens in your life. You have the authority to be safe and secure in your person, in your body. So your no means no. If someone does not respect that, then we're beginning to blur or should I say cross over into that area of sexual assault.
And I think that's really important that you talk about consent, what you just said of saying no and that no being respected. And I think that's important for us to consider in our talk about self-defense, because sometimes it can be almost a chain of events. And if this person isn't a dating partner or someone you've gone out on a date with isn't respecting the verbal no or even a physical gentle no this way, then that may escalate into having to use more self-defense based techniques. And I think that's where that plays into when we're talking about empowerment self-defense, of it's a set of skills that can be used kind of in conjunction. And the other point that you brought up is the stranger in the dark alleyway, and I think that's one of those myths that gets perpetuated when we talk about sexual violence. But those strangers in the dark alleyway really only account to about 4 or 5% of assaults, and that's true for the state of Alabama. Last that I checked the research, similarly across the whole U.S. It's far more likely to be someone known. In adults, it's upwards of 75 to 76% of people are known to the victim. And in childhood cases, it's 90% are known. So it's really important for us to recognize and talk about, where these things occur and how they occur in the context of setting and such. And another issue that I read about when I was looking into this more was sexual violence in the military as it pertains to military training. And this may not be a topic that you can discuss heavily, but I thought it was interesting to bring up, specifically that defense lawyers have been known to use military or self-defense training against a victim survivor in court, citing that due to such training, an assault couldn't have occurred. But so if even militarily trained people can be assaulted, is self-defense really that effective?
Yes. I myself have never served in the military, so I can't speak with authority on that. However, what I tell people oftentimes is that you want to control what you can control. All right. Later on down the line, when we get to court, it is the job of the prosecution, it is the job of the advocates, et cetera, of securing a conviction for these assaults. However, what I want to control is I arrived home safely. I was able to get away from a situation with my health, my dignity, my mental well-being intact. If I have to use some type of self-defense mechanisms in order to make sure that that happens, I will do that. All right, and I win. Later on down the line, that's completely their job to, like I say, secure court victories. What I'm worried about is what I can control.
I get you. So I hear you talking about survival and making it out of this situation alive. And that's another really important thing for us to talk about is oftentimes we think of self-defense only in the context of, fighting back, being ready to fight or flee and escape an attacker. However, what we know about our involuntary reactions or responses to potential trauma or danger, it's really important to this discussion as well. We have more than just fight or flight responses to danger. We also freeze and fawn. And all of these responses, they're completely normal. They're ingrained into our, our deep-seated lizard brain. So it's a normal reaction to a danger. And it's intended to ensure that survival. And I bring this up because victim survivors are often, they're shamed for not fighting or fleeing. I remember hearing a couple years ago before I started in this position that victim survivors who screamed or fought back had a better healing trajectory. And what I know now, it's, I don't know if that's actually a true statistic or if this is something that's put out there to encourage people to fight back, but it doesn't account for the different responses that we have. And sometimes those are they're just not voluntary. And we see this in nature with animals, freezing or fawning as an effective way to escape danger. And building on that, additionally, people who have survived interpersonal trauma in childhood, such as child sexual abuse or parental domestic violence, are far more likely to freeze and suffer subsequent assaults because freezing in the past has allowed that danger to come and go and they survived. So we see that again. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that and if you feel like taking these different responses into account when we talk about self-defense is important to discuss?
Sure. So ultimately, the body or the psyche's innate mode is to survive one way or another. It has those deep seated, even as you said, in the animal kingdom, there are some animals that, may curl up in a ball as their self-defense mechanism. They may release certain types of pheromones and scents as a defense mechanism. They may drop appendages in hopes that the prey focus on that appendage as they get away. These are things that oftentimes are not pre-planned. It's ingrained in your DNA. The fight, the flight, the freeze, and the fawn oftentimes are reactions to outside stimulus. In this instance, we're talking about sexual aggression and sexual assault. However, I offer that those tools that we spoke about previously, if you put those tools in your tool belt, you can reach for them at a later time. And then now we're not reacting to a stimulus, but we're responding to a stimulus. When something happens, I know in the back of my mind, I have that pre-planned mindset that I will fight and I will win. I have that pre-planned mindset that no matter what, this person is not going to take the power away from me. We spoke about it, sexual assault is more than the sex act. It's about power and control. Well, who has the power? Who has the control? I do, not this person. You will not rob me of my power. You will not rob me of my control, and you will not rob me of my dignity. So if and when something does happen, I respond as opposed to react.
I like that you make that distinction between responding and reacting, and how that, when someone is trained through self-defense tactics, it seems like from what you're saying that it kind of becomes muscle memory. Like we put that in there and it's in there ready for us to use. So instead of, just deer in the headlights, we have that instant reaction of like, I'm going to get in my stance, or however posture we need to feel like we're going to take our power back. So I appreciate you stating that. I think that's important. And I want to ask if obviously we're if you have those skills in your mental database, I guess you are more likely to use them than to not. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. So again, it's deep seated. It's inbred in your mind that without you even knowing, because no even animal in the animal kingdom wants to be a victim, right? So even us as humans, we want to be secure. We want to be in our person, secure, safe, etc. So when these things happen, we rely on what's in us. If the only thing that is in you is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, these are the things that's going to happen, and you don't even know which one is going to. You would like to think that, okay, I'm a track star, I'm a runner, I'm gonna get out of there. You would like to think that well, maybe if I play dead, this will all go away if I just close my eyes. This is a bad dream or what have you. You would like to think that those things would occur. However, again, the power and control. If I can control how I respond to the stimulus, then that gives me the power, that gives me the ability to determine my outcome.
Okay, that's good to understand. And I think that helps clarify exactly the nature of self-defense, and especially for anybody who may be thinking of pursuing self-defense training. So as far as local programs that are available, are you aware of any programs that are offered to non-English speaking populations, or any that are perhaps specific to queer LGBTQIA plus individuals, or even low income, or those with disabilities? Are there variations available to different populations?
Sure. So to answer your question, yes, they are available. LGBTQIA plus persons oftentimes find themselves disproportionately victims in this arena, and sometimes they feel as though that there's no outlet, there's no recourse, there's nothing that they can take part in. However, I would encourage them and anyone that feels as though that this is something that they can benefit from to seek it out. Different programs, without sounding like I'm endorsing one thing over another, different programs are offered. Local YMCAs, again, we talked about on college campuses, these classes that are offered, the RAD classes that are offered for free. I'm pretty sure that if you contact some of these classes that are posted on social media and say, hey, you know, I would really like to be a part of a session or two. I don't have a whole lot of resources and funds, but I believe that this is something I need just to feel a little better, feel a little empowered about myself. I'm pretty sure that there can be something worked out, either if it's a for-profit program, maybe something that as far as a payment plan, or even just, hey, you could sit in on 1 or 2 sessions. And if nothing else, you know, we can go to YouTube, good old fashioned YouTube. It offers everything. You know, I learned how to tie a bow tie just by watching YouTube. So, you know, anything that you can do to make yourself feel that much more confident, I would suggest pursuing that.
Excellent. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I always forget about YouTube, that you can find just about any video on there.
Yes, you can.
So the last thing, excuse me, that I really want to ask you is, given the collaborative nature of law enforcement with crisis services and the other agencies that provide similar services, what advice would you offer to people to prevent incidents of sexual violence? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the context of self-defense, just in general.
Yeah, sure. So when I talk to people about anything on my purview, be it domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, etc., I like to remind people that we don't control the world. Okay, anything can happen anywhere. What you can control is yourself. What you can control is how you respond to things as opposed to reacting to these things. And what that takes is a pre-planned mental mindset of resiliency, confidence, and determination. Confidence builds inner strength. Determination builds that I can do it, that it's not going to be me, not today. And it builds that thing on the inside that says that I will not be a statistic and I will stay safe. So if you feel as though that self-defense classes or self-defense tips and actions, things of that nature, is something that you can benefit from, sure, by all means, grab those things, put them in your tool belt, and if and when that time comes that you need it, pull it right out and, you know, wear it as a badge of honor, because, you know, we don't want to lead you to believe that you'll be stigmatized in any way, because anyone that would seek to stigmatize you, they're already not on your team. They're already not for your benefit, for your advancement. So what they think really doesn't mean anything. We want to align ourselves with those people who mean us the best. We want to align ourselves with those people who are here as a support system or who are more likely to be an ally. So seek out those things, seek out those self-defense seminars, classes, YouTube videos, etc., and practice good safety, self-determination, and confidence.
Excellent. Thank you. And that kind of wraps up the questions that I have for you. I do want to say to any of our viewers, if any of this information has been triggering or uncomfortable and you need someone to talk to, please call our 24-hour helpline. That number is 256-716-1000. And if you're not comfortable making a phone call, you can always text us in the evenings from 4 to 11:30 p.m. at 722-8219. Sometimes my brain works. And we want to encourage anyone, if you have experienced sexual violence, please reach out to us for counseling. If it's been in the near past, we'd like to see you for an exam and make sure that you get connected to police officers that will listen and will help you navigate this tough time. And thank you for watching. And Sergeant Wright, I really appreciate you being here with us today. This has been really beneficial. I've learned a lot, and I hope that our viewers have learned a lot as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.